kind of hinted at it a second ago, but do you want to talk about the box office mayhem? Do we want to add like one more little thing to it? 'Cause everybody's been talking about it. So
It's the people that are really hyped about Furiosa. Everyone's pretty bummed out because, and this
yeah,
isn't the first movie to be like this year, where it's getting just wave after wave of great review and critical praise, and for the most part, audience praise. I was a little not baffled, but kind of caught off guard by the cinema score. But then I looked at Fury Road; it was the same cinema score. It's just
yeah,
it's a very different kind of action franchise. But man, only 25 million opening weekend, not
mm,
counting the holiday. Obviously, that's low. That's really low. And I
right,
I didn't expect it to get extremely high because Fury Road didn't crush the box office, but Fury Road got almost double that. I mean, it was in the 40s. And so you expect, with people finding that movie over the last several years on streaming platforms, more people would show up for Furiosa. And I get
right.
it's the idea of a prequel and things like that. But with the praise and word of mouth, you expect better. And so it's not over. This weekend could salvage it if there's a small drop off.
Uh-oh. It's over. We are screwed.
But I feel as if nowadays studios are looking at that opening weekend, and if it falls that short of expectations, guys, I hate to say this, we're probably going to see Furiosa on streaming platforms in a couple of weeks, and that sucks. That
Right.
really sucks. And so hopefully it performs well there, but yeah, it's a box office so far a failure.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I do just want to say we were probably lucky to get Furiosa to begin with.
Mhm.
We kind of you just mentioned Mad Max Fury Road, and that's something that I rediscovered. I talked about how I podcasted about it, all those years ago, but I've kind of forgot that it like wasn't the biggest because we all love Fury Road. We just
Mhm.
gush about it. We're always talking about fun. Of course we're excited about Furiosa, but when you look at the numbers, we were probably lucky to get Furiosa in the first place. So I'm also not going to pretend like I know why people watch what they watch. I don't. Like when you guys get online, watch YouTube shows, Campia, listen to podcasts, everybody wants to rationalize. Oh, it's people have less money than ever. Yeah, probably true. But they're also getting pickier. Yeah, probably true. The streaming start it's a million things and we're all right. But I don't know. I focus more on the fact that I also don't know why movies are a success. Why is Dune 2 as popular as it is? No clue. Like, legitimately, when they announced Dune years ago, I thought it was a
Mhm.
joke. I thought it was an absolute joke coming off of 2049. I remember laughing all the way home. Guys, Dune is a mistake. It is going to fail. That was a recorded take by me. Now, the first Dune came out, it was during COVID. It could have maybe been bigger without COVID, but did fine. That is not a conventional movie.
No.
That's a movie that I kind of had to learn to love because
Yeah.
it's just the DNA of it. It doesn't hold your hand at all. It is Denis Villeneuve directing a blockbuster, not the most accessible type of blockbuster right out the gate. Dune 2 obviously is, but it's like, why is Dune popular? Or
Yeah.
don't you sometimes get confused? Aren't you blown away by the things that people like sometimes?
As a heavily invested film nut, I was over the moon about Dune Part 2 in terms of anticipation, but
Oh, me
I
too. Yeah.
acknowledged I acknowledged that that's not a very accessible blockbuster franchise sequel. Did people
No.
see the first movie? I understand it's really popular and big on Max right now, or at least I perceive that it is. But is it? My thing, Ryan, when I realized this was going to make more box office money than even I expected, was when my local Kentucky friends were telling me,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to go see Dune Part 2. We just saw Part 1 last night, or we just saw Part 1 last week. And I'm like, So you didn't see part 1 over the last several years to get you
Right.
excited for this. This is something that you're discovering. So how are you discovering it? Is it the popcorn bucket? Because I kid you not, that's I sound crazy. That it ended up being a
Mm,
brilliant marketing strategy because of the memes and the jokes and the
mm,
social media talk. And people are like, well, the Dune popcorn bucket, I could go see this movie Dune. People are talking good about it, right? And it's the same thing with an Oppenheimer and Barbie coming out at the same time. Barbenheimer. It was this big thing. It was this event. People
mm.
dressing up like Barbie, people dressing up like Oppenheimer the same weekend. These event experiences nowadays, it feels like obviously the quality's got to be there or people are not going to show up, but it feels like a lot of it has to do with the way things trend on social media and the way that these TikTok viewers pick it up and more general audiences. And my Kentucky friends who I never pictured in 1,000 years were going to go watch Dune Part 2 in a theater are telling me, hey, you saw this already. Is it good? And I'm like, how do you even know this is coming out? I don't, they are
Right.
not on film Twitter, Ryan. It's crazy.
I it's weird. I hear what you're saying, and I, like, share in that. Like, there's times when I surprise myself when I'm talking to people, or surprise people surprise me. I'm all over the place, guys, sorry. People surprise me with the things that they're paying attention to all the time. Um, but at the same time, you mentioned how studios should, like, do better on social media and do viral stuff. You wanna know
Oh,
who had a
yeah.
great viral campaign and was a disappointment?
Hmm.
And I don't know why. Dead Reckoning. That had all of the
True.
behind the scenes videos about Tom Cruise training for the jump. Then there was the actual video of the jump. It was featured in the trailer. There's like the CinemaCon footage of him
Yeah.
doing like a barrel roll and a stunt plane, like all kinds of stuff. Coming
Yeah.
off of the success of Top Gun Maverick, I
Yeah.
I'm I'm literally telling you, I have no idea why Dead Reckoning didn't make more money. No clue. Like audience, I have no clue. I think that people on the internet, like us and you guys, the people that love to live this stuff, sometimes we just have to accept that the general public doesn't care about shit the way that we do. It's just different.
No.
It's just different. And
No.
that's okay. It's okay, but it breaks our hearts when we go through something like this. And some people argue too, like, why are we worried about box office in the first place? Why are we worried
Mhm.
about it's because we don't trust the studios. And we have to care because that's how they measure what they're going to make. It's like I have to care. Like my heart has to be involved in that because when I see weekends like this, it just makes me feel like we're not going to get any more of this again.
Well, we talked about last week what George Miller was going to do next after Furiosa, and after doing some research and looking into it, it did feel like he was working on this movie called The Wasteland, which was
Mm,
I actually looked into this a lot. Apparently, a year before Fury Road, but it followed what Mad Max was up to, and he had a whole story written out because he had worked on the backstories for both of these characters, and that, according to a lot of people, was the movie. And even George Miller himself recently said, if they greenlight this, that's the next movie I'm going to work on. And
yeah.
so my biggest, like, I guess the biggest disappointment for me is we're probably not going to get that now. And like you
Mm,
said, it's a miracle that we got Furiosa in the first place because Fury Road wasn't the biggest hit. It just wasn't. It was
yeah.
well received for the most part, but it was one that viewers and audiences they had to find and see if they liked it because it's so different. And people don't like prequels these days, other than Wonka, which blew everybody's expectation out of the water box office wise. People don't like prequels as much these days. Is it a story that general audience goers thought that we needed? It doesn't look like it. And is
Mm,
it a movie? Because most people only see 4 to 5 movies a year. Is this one of those 4 to 5 movies that people are going to spend their money on because it's a prequel, because they may not already be familiar with Fury Road? Now, reflecting on this box office, maybe it's not. Maybe it's
right.
not. Maybe it's not one of those 4 to 5. Maybe it's not because as much as I hate to say it this way, and movies are expensive. It is expensive. Now, there
Yeah.
are ways around that. You can get a Regal Movie Club membership, AMC. You can be a Cinemark, blah, blah, blah. I do that, obviously. But to warrant that, you have to see more than 4 or 5 movies a year. And
Right.
so a lot of people are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, what do I do? What do I spend my money on? Well, Deadpool's coming out. Inside Out 2's coming out. I have kids. Minions is coming out. My kids have friends. Well, let's just save our money for those movies. And Dune Part 2, I think, had a lot of these things that were able to overcome what Furiosa has. And people were saying, okay, I do need to see this. This is one of the big event films of the year. And obviously, last year, Oppenheimer, Barbie, the best example right now, the last couple of years, Top Gun Maverick, which was one that broke all kinds of records in the United States. The event film, word of mouth, theaters are back, baby, let's go. That No Way Home that year. So yeah, maybe it's just not that. And that's fine. That's okay at the end of the day, because we know what type of quality it is. But like you said, Ryan, and I love the way you said it, studios measure a lot of this based on box office, and this is not looking good.
We are screwed.
And I'll reiterate, but every reason you can think of is they all apply to, especially just name any movie, and one of those it could be any of 100 reasons as to why people didn't go see it. But I mean, it's like at the same time, it's the snake that's eating itself, because the reaction to low box office numbers causes studios to need to make their money back and put it out on streaming, but also putting out on streaming works against it, and it's like a cycle. And I'm not confident that we can put the toothpaste back in the tube. Like, if they take away that quick of a turnaround, I don't think it fixes box office. Like, if The Fall Guy waited 3 or 4 months, I think we've already trained the audience to just wait for streaming. I mean, people kind of do that anyway. I mean, think about before the day and date release, people used to be like, "Oh, I'll just wait for it on Netflix."
Yeah.
Yeah. That's back when we used to, like, I remember when people would be like, "Oh, I'll just wait for Star Wars to hit Netflix," because then I'd argue like, no, it actually wouldn't hit Netflix because it's a Disney film, and because then we'd be talking like that, or yeah, that's how I would like talk to my mom, like, it's not actually on Netflix, but okay.
It's
So
on Disney Plus, Mom. Well, yeah, the Fall Guy is a great example, because the Fall Guy, I mean, it was a failure. And so you can't, with Top Gun Maverick, people were still going and going and going, but our brains in 2024 are wired differently. And so now if you keep a movie in theaters, it's not like people are going to say, oh, well, week 7 still in theaters, I guess I'm not going to wait for streaming. It's like, no, you're just going to see the next big thing. And so
right.
it's a lot different now. And we're trying to, not myself, obviously, but movie theaters are trying to figure out, and studios, how do we go about this? Do we go back to the day and date releases? Do we focus more on streaming? What do these streaming numbers do for the film and its revenue? That's what I want to figure out, is if The Fall Guy becomes a hit on streaming platforms. I mean, look at Bullet Train. Bullet Train was a huge hit on Netflix, massive hit on Netflix. Nobody saw it in theaters.
Right.
I mean, so how did that impact that movie? How did it impact its revenue stream? I'm always curious about those things, but these studios aren't very transparent about that. So that's something I'd like to look into, though, is what do these streaming numbers do and say? Like, does it give us the chance at a sequel for some of these films? We'll see with Furiosa if we ever get The Wasteland. But yeah, like you said, right now it's not looking great.
It's going to be carnage in like 5 or 10 years, because I think we're also going to see in real time how little young people, I can't believe I'm saying that, young people don't give a shit about movies.
You sound so old.
Yeah, I know.
There's young people.
I love the young people.
People will give less and less of a shit about movies. It's just it's not pivotal pop culture anymore. So,
you know why? You know why? Because we got these things right here, Ryan. We've got TikTok, YouTube. I mean, I am not joking. I know people in my life, really close friends, who know I'm a movie critic. They're like, yeah, man, I haven't really watched a movie in like years. And I'm like, years?
You know
what?
So somebody at work found out that I was a big movie guy, and they watch movies, they like movies. So they were like, "Hey, what are you watching? What's the last good thing that you saw?" And this was literally the day after we saw Challengers. And so I was like, "Yeah,
Oh.
Challengers is great." I told him a little bit about it, and he's like, "Oh, awesome." I saw him at work the next day. Okay. He comes up to me and says, "Hey, I tried to find that movie you mentioned, but I didn't see it anywhere." And
Oh,
I'm
God.
like, I said, "It's in theaters." And he's like, "Oh, okay." But I realized, guys, yeah, this was like a month ago. I was like,
Oh, no.
he had no intention of going to the theater to see it, but also he didn't think about it being a theatrical release first. And
Oh.
even after he searched on streaming services, think about it. He didn't find out or look for it to be
Or
in
think to
theaters
look.
because he came to me the next day and didn't know it.
What is wrong with you?
And I was like, "What? Wait, this is what the normies do. They look and see if it's on streaming and they don't think twice that it's in theaters." He had no I had to tell him the next day. It's like, it just came out, bro.
The crazy thing about you saying that is,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it here like, oh man, that's such a crazy thought to me. We are in the minority, Ryan.
Yes.
We
Yes.
film Twitter and our landscape. This is a very small branch of the internet and the world, and we hear that and we're like, oh man, that's crazy. But most people have that mentality. That's what's crazy about it.
Yeah. And I used to talk about that all the time when I was doing the Schmoes shows and Collider shows. And guys, love what you love. Like, by all means, we're all here because we're in movie mode. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, like, people don't care about the things that we care about. Like, that's
No.
why we have these communities online. So, but sometimes and that's what's exhausting. Like, I kind of hesitated bringing this topic up in general because it's like, guys, I have nothing to say. Like, there's nothing I can contribute. I have no clue. I just know that I like the movies that I like. I know that I get heartbroken, but I don't know. I have nothing to solve. I don't need to come on here and act like I know what the hell's going on because I don't. But, maybe we're venting.
That's why we started this podcast, Ryan, because my wife is sick of it. She's sick of it, man. She's like, dude, I don't care. I'm like, babe, Furiosa failed at the box office. She's like, okay, I don't care. Can I go see it? Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need somebody to. So that's why we're here, folks, because we are in movie mode, and hopefully you are too. But if you're not, maybe we can find some recommendations and have some encouragement here to keep the theatrical landscape alive, because we got to keep that going, man. I can't think of a world where we can't go to the theater and see a movie on a big booming Cinemark XD screen like we did Furiosa, man. That's an experience and a half. And I got to get out of the house, so.
Studios need to figure out how to utilize their stars' social media followings. The social media following that Chris Hemsworth and Anya Taylor-Joy have, Warner Brothers should be ashamed of themselves. Seriously, what an absolute joke! What a joke!
I agree.